everyone. Tonight we're going to cover dual citizenship. So this is a subject that's come up that people ask me to cover. So you're either Brit and you loved your old Burgundy passport, but now it's blue, like the color I'm wearing, midnight blue, or you are Italian, or you're both. Isn't that lovely? I'm both, because eventually this will expire and it will have to become blue, but for the moment I'm all burgundy. Right, let's cover what it means to become an Italian citizen, and so many people want to. Okay, so this is a very desirable citizenship. Let's cover why. So there are a lot. I don't have a specific number, but it's certainly in the hundreds of thousands and perhaps maybe close to 1 million of Americans, Australians, South Africans, Brits, Swedish people, I don't know, you name the nation, who also have Italian rights because they are either the child of a parent who is Italian, or they have rights via their grandparents with jus sanguinis. So let's cover it. This is not a guide towards every single piece of paper, but having applied for Italian citizenship myself, I think I can give you a good idea of what's required. Okay, so the first thing to know is when people talk about living in Italy and not having language skills, you're going to have to do a language test to get an Italian passport if you don't marry somebody who's Italian. So let's go through the things. Okay, so if you apply through residence because you've been here for 10 years, or in the past, if you were European Union, it was 4 years. Okay, but if you're British, you no longer fall under European Union. So if you haven't already applied for citizenship, you would have to be permanently resident here for 10 years. Okay, the same applies to anybody from any other nation. You would have to be permanently resident here. That doesn't mean jumping up and down visiting for 3 months, but permanently registered as resident here for 10 years. So let's say you have all of that. Let's cover first by marriage, then by by naturalization, and then by acquisition via decendency. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is that you marry an Italian citizen. If you do not live in Italy, in other words, you're resident overseas, you marry an Italian, it is a longer waiting period than if you were resident in Italy. So usually you have to be resident for 2 years in Italy, and then you are able to apply. If you have children and you're part of a reunification of family, it could be shorter than that. But let's look at the 2 years. So what do you need? So let's look at a British person. I had a British passport, came to Italy on a British passport 20 years ago. What would you need? So the first thing that you need is that you need to pass an Italian language exam, a B1, and there are certain centers in Italy that cover this. So you have to study for that exam, pass that exam, which means that you are fluent enough in the language to be able to live daily life. And I think it's only fair that if you're going to have the citizenship of a country, that you be able to speak the language. Okay, so that's the first thing. You would also need to have a police clearance certificate from every place you've lived since you were 15 years old. 14, 15 years old. So you would need to, let's say you've lived in 4 countries, you would need to get a police clearance certificate from every one of those countries. That could be the most difficult and challenging thing for most people, but that's what you have to do. And then you need, so let's say you've got the police report, it also has to be apostilled. So in other words, it needs to have an apostille, it needs to be translated into Italian. So that all has to be achieved. Then you have to have your tax records in Italy for the last 3 years, the 3 years preceding. So your tax stuff has to be in order. I mean, obviously, if you have a major criminal record, that's going to be an issue right up front. You need your tax records. You need all the pieces of paper that led you to your permanent resident in the comune. So you would need your original registration for residency, and if it's after Brexit, you would have had to have got your attestazione that you had been resident before Brexit and therefore subject to European Union rights, which is Article 50. Sorry, I sometimes say 51 because it feels like it just never ended. Article 50, so you would need that piece of paper. And if you got Carta di Soggiorno, which I did, which people should have got as British residents permanently in Italy, you can also do that, which helps because, I mean, then it everything's on your fingerprints on there, everything's on there. And then you would need to have your Carta d'identità, a copy of that. Okay, there are lots of sites online where you can find a list. There's also a couple of Facebook groups for dual citizenship and also for applying for an Italian passport as a Brit or applying for dual citizenship as an American. So that's if you're applying for naturalization, which is what I did. Okay, then you have your photos and you put that all in, and you need your birth certificate, your original long form birth certificate. That needs to be apostilled, that needs to be translated. All of this stuff has to be translated by an authorized translator who then has to sign and stamp. Mine was done in Milan in the court. And when all of that's done, you upload it online, and if you're lucky, it doesn't kick out, but generally you can upload it online. I did. In fact, when I went for my interview, because you go for an interview once they've accepted your documents and given you a number, they give you a K number, and that K number is your reference number throughout. I actually waited 4.5 years because I fell into the situation where Savini came in and lengthened the time for waiting for the passport. And then it was revised halfway through my wait, but it wasn't retroactive, so I waited 4.5 years. Anyway, it came to an end eventually. So it seems completely overwhelming when you're having to collect all these pieces of paper. My suggestion would be that you apply for your everything that you need, your birth certificate, all the stuff you need, get your language certificate, get all of that done, get all your translations done, because your police certificate expires after 6 months. So try to do that last, because it could take you, I don't know how long, to get all your ducks in a row. And then apply for your police certificate, have that apostilled and translated, and then you're good to go. By which time you've got everything else done. You then have to, upload all the stuff. They apportion you a K number, and then you just wait. And they are supposed to regularly update you on the portal. I remember looking for years, and many people actually attest to the fact that you could wait for years, and then suddenly in year 4 or year 3.5 or whatever, suddenly it changes from stage 1 to stage 7, and suddenly it says, okay, it should slowly move through the 7 stages, but it doesn't. It didn't work like that for me, and it doesn't work like that for many people. But I mean, now the waiting period should be about 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, unless you're a special case. Okay, that is for naturalization. For marriage, I've already covered that. You need the same stuff. You don't automatically have to do the language part of it. Let's jump to getting it by descent. So a lot of Americans, Australians, in other words, non-European people, because many European people who already have a European passport don't necessarily see the need to get an Italian unless they are, sentimental about getting an Italian passport because their family came from Italy. Most people are just happy to have their European passport they already have. They already have a Burgundy passport. They don't want another one, which is certainly my case, except for the fact that this is no longer Burgundy. So I needed that one. So there we are. And so a lot of people are looking at dual citizenship. In other words, they're Americans or Australians or whatever, and they want to apply through their descent, through their parentage. So there are many ways to do this. Some people absolutely say that you shouldn't try and do it without the aid of a consultant who does dual citizenship for you, leads you in the right direction, helps you to get the pieces of paper, helps you to translate. It's entirely up to you. You can come to Italy, look for your birth certificate of your last, relative that is directly linked to you. There are some pitfalls. I'm not going to go into the legal aspects here because there are lots of websites, and I prefer that you consult with someone about your particular situation, because I think generalized advice doesn't go very far. But from the people that I've helped and the people I know, you need to make sure that they did not lose their Italian citizenship because they became naturalized somewhere else. So there was a period where women who married non-Italians then lost their rights. And if you were the grandchild or the child of one of those women, you could have a complicated, long case. It's not impossible, but you would have to have a court case. And so I have to say that because it's true. But for many people, they find a way to get decendency, to find the birth certificate, and to get all the pieces of paper they need. It can be as short as 6 months. It can be as long as 6 years. It could be even longer. It really depends on your particular case. Obviously, if somebody in your family, that could be a cousin, a second cousin, whatever, has already done it, that makes it easier for you. That means it's humanly possible. And also, whatever research they have already done, you can piggyback on them. I know this sometimes causes stress in families because citizenship opens up cans of worms you can't even imagine. People get angry about it. People who feel that everybody should have a right to every passport. Well, that's not the world we live in, unfortunately. It would be lovely, but it's just not like that. So if somebody in your family has already gone that route, obviously, if you're following them, it makes it a lot easier for you. If you're the first one doing it and you have to do all the hard work, the finding of the grandparents' birth certificates, whether they ever gave up their citizenship, all of that, there are dates that one has to follow in terms of when it was legal, when it wasn't, and certainly if you fall into any of these categories that aren't simplistic, I would suggest that you get a consultant to help you. It doesn't have to be a hugely expensive immigration lawyer, but it could be. You could have the funds for that, and I'm speaking to all kinds of people, and so that may be the easier way for you. But it can be done by you yourself with the help of your family. Obviously, some research has to be done, and in this case, you are directly descending, and the language certificate is not. an initial requirement. So let's say, I mean, it's nice to have Italian in any way. It's going to help you a lot with the people you're going to have to deal with in the comune, but maybe you have someone to do it for you, and that's okay. So lots of people get the dual citizenship. And what this means is that, let's say you want to come and buy a house in Italy, you decide that you'd love to retire in Italy when you're finished with your job in the States or Australia or wherever it is that you're applying from. It means that you're a citizen here, and citizenship always affords more rights in every country than simple permanent residency. And yeah, and an Italian passport isn't a bad one to have. You can travel to many countries. You can be covered with, the protection that a European Union country gives you. And so you can work wherever you like in Europe. You simply have to register for tax and register for residence in that European Union jurisdiction, and you can work in Europe. Obviously, you have to register. You can't just flip back and forth. But, in some way you have visa-less travel, because if you are an Italian citizen, you can actually travel with your carta d'identità, your identity card, between European Union countries. You still can, and you always can. It also means that your health card is covered everywhere in Europe. So if you had an emergency, you would be covered. These are the rights that a European Union citizen, which is what you will be if you get the Italian passport, these are the benefits that they enjoy. So you still have freedom of movement, and you can either decide to keep your American citizenship, which makes sense, or you can relinquish it. I can't imagine how difficult and complicated that would be, but it's not necessary. But there are people who have done that because they feel they are still subject to American tax. But that's another subject that I won't get into. But yes, so you are free to live in Italy. You again have to register. Everyone has to register. You have to be resident in the comune, and therefore you get your health card and you get all the benefits that you would get as a permanent resident, except you're a citizen. So that can be a great thing. People have had many debates with me over the time when we were going through Brexit, us British people, as to whether it was worth getting the passport. Wasn't it too long? Wasn't it too complicated? Was it worth doing? And I can only say, yes, it is worth doing, because we don't know what the future holds. And if you're entitled to a citizenship, why not get it? Yes. So I hope I've covered most of the points. I'm going to try and keep this to 20 minutes, which is what I do at most of my videos. Otherwise, they go on. If you have any questions, or if you just enjoyed this, won't you like the video? Leave a question for me in the comment. If you do have a question, please subscribe. Please share it with anybody that you think it would help. And if you would like to email me directly with some questions that I can help you with, the email will be in the description box, and also my Instagram, where you can find the photos of what I cover and the subjects I cover. I look forward to seeing you on the next one, and good luck if you're applying for citizenship. And I can honestly encourage you to stay the course, go the long haul, because it is worth it to have your lovely Italian passport in hand. So until the next time, from here in Italy, Amanda, see you on the next one. Take care. Bye for now. Bye.